The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
This is a podcast from WOR.
Now, it's A Better Road Home. He worked for you in Albany. He's New York's voice. He's your voice.
Governor, I'd like to congratulate you on your show. A breath of fresh air.
Welcome to the Governor David Paterson Show.
A mistake that candidates make in campaigns is they attack everything. After a while, the audience's eyes just glaze over.
New York's only local news talk in the afternoon.
It is impossible to determine who said what to who. They probably both believe what they said. I'll bet you that they could both pass a polygraph.
Now, the man with the inside track on the tri-state. Here is Governor David Paterson.
Well, after 48 hours of rigorous effort, I think I have cleared up that I do not think that President Obama got away with anything. I think that he was born in Hawaii. However, what I promised on that same show Tuesday afternoon is that we would give the issue of the birth certificate yet another hearing. Now, in 2006, it was in the spring, because I was a candidate for lieutenant governor. I was traveling around, and one night found myself listening to Coast to Coast, then on another station, for a debate about whether or not oil comes from our antecedent reptiles, or whether it's abiotic, that it, in a sense, comes from rocks interacting with carbon and hydrogen and creating it underground. The debaters were a writer by the name of Michael Rubin and our guest, a celebrated author by the name of Jerome Corsi. Jerry, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Governor. Who won that debate according to the audience counts? Do you remember?
No, I wasn't able to.
Took a survey at the end of it, and I won that debate overwhelmingly against Michael Rupert. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
Well, you know, I wasn't awake long enough to hear who won the debate. I will say I thought both of you were outstanding.
Thank you.
So now today, Dr. Jerome Corsi, who is a senior staff writer for the WorldNet Daily and #1 New York Times best-selling author, Where's the Birth Certificate? The case that Barack Obama is not eligible to be president of the United States. And let's get into it right away. Jerry, tell us why.
Well, first of all, Governor, I think we had some pretty startling evidence come forward when it was made clear that President Obama has had his literary agent and publicist for 16 years, 1991 through 2007, put on the website, publishing catalogs, give out for interviews the biographical information that Barack Obama was born in Kenya. And it's not credible that she just made a mistake. I'm an author. All the biographical information comes from the author, is the responsibility of the author. You hear your biographical statement repeated just as you did with me a moment ago in introducing me to your audience. That comes from my publicist and from my statement. So Barack Obama, for 16 years, heard his publicist, read it in catalog saying he was born in Kenya, and made no effort to change it.
But there was talk about President Obama running for president after his speech that I witnessed at the Democratic National Convention in Boston in 2004. So once that was in the air, leaving out everything else that you've said, it had to be a mistake if it stayed there on the website for 3 years.
Well, it should have been changed immediately, unless Barack Obama simply didn't realize the significance of this. I mean, I've got quotes from Obama and statements from Obama going back, virtually through his entire public life, in which he's been happy to say he was born in Kenya, to have that published and not correct.
So you have quotes from him where he says this himself?
No, I'm saying in print. In print from his speeches, from his introductions.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If he wrote the speech, then it's a quote from him. You have that.
No, I'm saying as various reports, newspaper reports of Barack Obama have published consistently that he has been born in Kenya. newspapers going back 20 years stating this, and they have never, at the time they weren't.
Oh, you're
correct.
saying the newspapers said he was
and-
from Kenya, and he doesn't
Precisely.
refute it and make a correction.
And I interviewed the postman who delivered mail to Bill Ayers, his family, his father and mother, in Chicago. And Mrs. Ayers told the postman that the family, the Ayers, were funding this African-American foreign student through his education. Barack Obama shows up, introduces himself to the mailman, and the subsequent day says he's coming to thank the Ayers for funding his education. Now, again, this is, two kinds of association. And the postman, in an affidavit, swore to Sheriff Arpaio's law enforcement group that, in fact, this was Barack Obama, and he associated that Barack Obama was the foreign student being paid for his education. This time it's Harvard by the Ayers. And that does two things. That affidavit of the postman, and I published a video of it on WND.com, establishes both that Barack Obama knew the Ayers family far earlier than he's ever admitted. He lied, Barack Obama, saying that he just knew Ayers because he was some guy in the neighborhood and their kids went to school together.
But leaving that part out, if Ayers helped him with his college education, which I have never been aware of until this moment, why would that prove that he's a foreign student?
Because Mrs. Ayers said that it was a foreign student they were helping. It was a foreign student. And that was the association the postman made.
But a lot of people who are born in other countries are associated with that country, even though they're Americans.
Well, Governor, I've got a good idea. If Barack Obama was letting his publicist for 16 years say that he was born in Kenya, maybe Barack Obama was telling this to the universities he applied to. Why are we not allowed to see from Occidental College, from Columbia, from Harvard, his applications, whether he was a foreign exchange student, whether he got tuition as a foreign student? We have zero records from Barack Obama on his education.
I'll tell you what, Jerry, when I was at Columbia, I got a letter from the bursar's office that if I didn't pay my library bill, they would never let anyone else see my records, and I didn't pay it.
Well, maybe you better go get back and correct that problem, Governor.
Now, you allege that because wherever President Obama was born, that he immediately, because of his father, became a dual citizen of the United States and Kenya, since his father was Kenyan, and that makes him ineligible to be president regardless of where he was born. Tell us about that.
Well, and again, this was even on the Obama campaign website in 2008, and the State Department had Obama as a dual citizen at birth on their website, so I wrote about it in WND.com, and then the State Department scrubbed it. I mean, the strictest definition of a natural-born citizen under Article 2, Section 1 is not just a citizen, but someone born in the United States to two parents who are U.S. citizens at the time of birth. And that's an issue that needed to be examined at the time in 2008. It needs to be examined again. The Democrats attacked the first birthers were the Democrats. They attacked John McCain. John McCain went to the Senate, presented his birth credentials. Senate Resolution 511 was passed.
But John McCain, as I remember it, was born in a U.S. territory, even though it wasn't a state.
In the Canal Zone.
In the Canal Zone. And
but the Democrats were attacking him. Go back to my book, Where's the Birth Certificate? I've got 50 pages of exhibits. You'll see 7 or 8 pages where...
But see, Jerry, this is, I think, part of the problem. And let me, if you don't mind, let me explain to you what I think the problem is. Yeah, maybe some Democrats, somebody who's running against in a primary did attack him, which is very common, that you just attack anything you can think about your opponent. But for instance, on May 25th, in an interview that you had with Alex Jones, who I'm familiar with as well, you said that if Obama gets reelected, that we're going to have thought education camps, and that if we are alive at all, then you go on to say there'll be no First Amendment, no Fourth Amendment, and no human rights. Now, I'm not quibbling for the moment with what you said, but
I'd like to provide a background for that, and
Now, you can
Thank
provide a
for the-
background for it in a second, but what I'm saying to you is that when somebody has that much of a viewpoint about an individual, how do they get credibility? Because I heard you right here on WOR on the Steve Malzberg show saying really that you were just trying to look at all candidates to see whether or not they are eligible to become president. But when you've got, and I'm not denying you this right, but when you've got that strong a point of view about this president, and you also wrote a book about Kerry, who happened to be the Democratic candidate running in 2004, don't you think that it diminishes the credibility of your argument? In other words, that with some people you can't, I'll let you talk, but with some people you can't even get to first base.
Well, Governor, I'll commend you on your Saul Alinsky skills. You're very good at demonizing me and shifting.
No. I'm not trying to demonize you. I'm trying to talk about how you get recognition in the marketplace.
How about if I answer your question?
Sure.
First of all, I've also pointed out that I don't think Marco Rubio or Bobby Jindal are natural-born citizens. Their parents, for either of them, they have problems with their parents not being U.S. citizens when they were born. I, by the way, wrote a book against George W. Bush called The Late Great USA. You may not have read that one, Governor, but it does refute your argument that I'm only, in a partisan way, attacking Democrats. I deny that. And furthermore, I'm arguing that the entire demonization, thank you for the opportunity to introduce another book. I have Saul Alinsky, the evil genius behind Obama, as a e-book. It's doing tremendously well because I point out that this is the technique the White House is using to defend itself. Rather than Obama releasing the documents, you want to see my birth certificate, I'll show you the original. I was just in Hawaii with the sheriff's posse last week, Sheriff Arpaio's posse, and still to this date, Hawaii will not show the original birth records they have.
All right,
for
let's go into that a little.
Let's get those out of the vault.
Okay, fine. Let's go into that a little deeper. So the president releases his allegedly his birth certificate and the long form. At least many of us think it is the birth certificate. Tell us why it's not. This happens in April 2011.
What the White House released was a PDF electronic file. Sheriff Arpaio's law enforcement examination has probable cause to believe that's a forgery. I said it was a forgery immediately. You can take the elements that are supposed to authenticate that document, the registrar's date stamp and the registrar's name stamp, and you can move them at will on the document. They're imported from another layer. It's a manufactured document on a computer. And any lawyer will tell you, in a court, the best evidence of the document itself. Why is the document just being hidden in the vault? And by the way, when President Obama was about it, why couldn't he release as well his college records, his grades back to grade school, his passport records? We don't even have a list of all the countries Obama's visited.
Do we have that list for other people?
Well, sure. I mean, this is the kind of thing that's demanded. You have the Obama campaign demanding to see Bain Capital records.
Right, but
Well,
I don't think the Obama
Barack Obama
campaign.
won't even show his identity records.
But I don't think the Obama campaign should get Bain's Capital records, and I think people ask for a lot of things that they don't get. I think when it becomes an issue. All right, let me ask you this: why do you think you would? I think agree that the majority of Americans accepted that President Obama cleared up the issue by.
I don't think so. Not from surveys I've seen. I think you've got 60% of the American people, and growing, still doubting that Obama was born in the United States. No, the hospitals have not released records. There's no record of Barack Obama's mother being a patient. Now, the next thing we're going to hear is Capilani destroyed its records. I mean, it's all the case with Obama. You can't get the final record. And presidents have to produce documentary evidence when these questions arise.
Now, Jerry, are you contending that Barack Obama's father is not his father?
I'm relying on the Immigration Naturalization Service record in the file from 1961 when they said that Barack Obama, Sr., the Kenyan, used as evidence for staying in the country that he was born to Ann Dunham, a U.S. citizen, had this child, a U.S. citizen. They were going to contest it. They didn't believe they were married because they didn't live at the same address. There's no marriage certificate. And Barack Obama had a lot of girlfriends at the university. And you get lie after lie.
Barack Obama Sr.
Senior. And the INS was going to contest that they were married and that this was Barack Obama's child. If that was an issue to the INS in 1961, it's an issue for me today.
But whether or not they were married wouldn't have affected his citizenship. And actually, the question I'm really asking you is, are you saying that somebody else is the father?
Well, I haven't said that anyone is identified as the father. I've said that even putting a picture together of the African with the president, there's not much physical resemblance. And Joel Gilbert has done a very interesting DVD called Dreams from My Real Father, arguing that the real father is Frank Marshall Davis, the communist poet and newspaper writer that retired in Hawaii, and Barack Obama mentions in his autobiography.
But then if it was him, doesn't it discount your previous argument, because now he's born to two American citizens?
Well, Governor, I still think the baby was born in Kenya, because whatever the deep secret is here of the birth, Ann Dunham could well have, or whomever was the mother, gone to Kenya to maintain the cover-up that the African was the dad.
But
it's equally plausible.
But other than that, did the mother, I believe, did go to Kenya with the baby at one point?
I'm not certain.
Okay.
Again, we don't.
Then how do we know she ever went to Kenya? How do we know she ever went to Kenya at all?
We don't. Again, the Secretary of the State Department says the key records for Ann Dunham are missing. It's over and over again a pattern with Obama. The dog ate all the key records, so we don't have Ann Dunham's passport records from 1991. They're conveniently gone.
Well, when the dog ate the records, was the dog in Kenya or in Hawaii? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
I'm not sure where the dog was, but this dog gets around.
I just got the feeling that this couple was not married, and like a lot of other people, he tried to assert this. Like you said, he was seeing a lot of women. He wasn't planning on marrying anyone. That this baby, as far as he was concerned, was an accident. So because of that, I don't see any reason why the woman would go to Kenya to have the baby. There didn't seem to be any interest he had in being a father to the baby.
Well, maybe they wanted this to be the appointed father. We don't have enough evidence to know, but we do know there's lies. I mean, in Dreams from My Father, Obama says that Mommy and Daddy stayed together until the Kenyan had to go to Harvard in 1962. The records are that within 3 weeks of this baby being born, Ann Dunham, the mother, splits Hawaii. She's in Seattle, Washington, taking night courses at the University of Washington. I've got the transcript.
3 weeks from the time the baby was born.
Right.
Then how does she get from Seattle, which seems estranged from him, all the way to Kenya?
Well, all of this is pretty remarkable about the mother, and it raises fundamental questions which need to be answered. Is this the mother biologically? Is this the father biologically? And 3 weeks after, an 18-year-old gives birth, she's flying from Hawaii to Seattle to take night courses with this baby, and telling one of her good friends, Maxine Bach, she doesn't know how to change the diapers. I mean, and she goes there without her mother. The whole thing is. So now,
Jerry, I know you've got
and a lie in Dreams from My Father.
Okay, so Jerry, I know you've got a deadline. I've got to go to a break. Are you on a hard 5:30?
No, I'll stay with you as long as you like.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I'll open up the lines, 800-321-0710. You can talk to Jerry Corsi. Jerry, just let me take a break. We'll be right back. All right, our guest is Jerry Corsi, who is the author of a number of books. But the one that is out right now is Where's the Birth Certificate? Came out, I believe, May 17th of 2011. Because I actually heard Jerry being interviewed on another station the day before the book was coming out. And he has been kind enough, he's very busy, but he's been kind enough to stay over for a little while longer. And we're going to let you talk to him at 800-321-0710. So let's start the calls with Jeanette in New Jersey. You're on with Jerry Corsi.
Hi, Jerry. This is Jenna.
Hi, Jenna.
Hi, how are you? We've met at a symposium and several other times, but I can't believe all the thousands of hours of investigative work that you put into this, and I feel that I feel people are starting to pay attention, but I feel that the conservatives and the Republicans and the people out there are just afraid to go there, and I don't know why. Because you have...
Well, let's stop right there. Jerry, why do you think Republicans say, who'd be interested in seeing President Obama lose, are not touching this issue?
Well, what I know is that question of character is important, and whether or not the Republicans raise it, I'm going to continue pressing the investigations I've done. I mean, the publicist has out there that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, and that information's out there, for 16 years. Somebody's lying, either then or now, and Barack Obama needs to show the documentary evidence to finally put these questions to rest. And by the way, not just another forged so-called original document out of the Hawaii Department of Health. Sheriff Arpaio wants the microfilm, he wants all the records, and he wants a thorough examination, because if the documents were forged once, they could be forged again.
An assemblyman named Anthony M. Bacco came to see you speak, Jerry, at the Mission Masonic Temple in New Jersey, and told the Star-Ledger that he wasn't sure about the issue, but it raised a lot of questions that he had not really thought about before. Let's go to Patricia in Westchester. You're on with Jerry Corsi.
Hi, Governor. Hi, Mr. Corsi. My experience in life tells me that often people hide things or alter things generally out of some embarrassment, not usually something criminal. However, let's assume, for the sake of argument, everything you've presented is fact.
Oh, be careful, Patricia. Don't assume for the sake of argument you may get written up like I did. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'll take it, Gov. Assuming everything you said is true and he is legally, unconstitutionally, able to serve, my question is, he would have to know that. Therefore, why would he want to create for himself such a negatively notorious history that would follow him for the rest of his life and make all his work, that anything he signed, null and void? What does he have to gain by such a fraud?
Jerry?
Well, I'm a political scientist. I'm not a psychiatrist. What I know is that even in Indonesia, this Barack Obama was listed in school, registered as Barry Soetoro. His mother had another surname put on her passport record, removing her son from her passport, Soy Barca. Now, is it Barry Soetoro who's in the White House, or is it Barack Obama? And was he legally a citizen of Indonesia? Did he register in school as such? It seems so. Did he have an Indonesian passport? Again, we don't know. Was he adopted by the Indonesian stepfather? These are all questions that could materially affect Obama's natural-born citizenship status, and Obama still today, 4 years into the presidency, refuses to show you the documents.
But, Jerry, if we went back to that time, 1961, when records were kept a lot differently, would there be that much information about any of us who happened to be born in Hawaii and moved around to Indonesia and other places? And, there may have been some identity issues. This was an interracial relationship that apparently the couple never got married. Like Patricia said, couldn't a lot of embarrassment really explain a lot of what went on?
Well, I've examined a lot of records trying to find Obama's, and quite frankly, Governor, I think some of the records maintained in 1961 were more meticulously maintained than today. I've got documents from Hawaii going through audits with the federal government showing that their vital statistics were maintained in 99% compliance with federal requirements. The documents from the INS appear meticulous.
Okay.
Whether or not the family was born. The documents are excellent.
No, I get the point. All right, let's go to Phil from Queens. You're on the air with Jerry Corsi.
Hi. Thank you, Professor, for doing a good job, and thank you for mentioning that you've gone after and have investigated Republicans also.
Yeah, I'm actually impressed by that.
I think the big problem is if it was one thing, if it was just Hawaii, if it was just Kenya, if it was just Indonesia, if it was just Occidental College records being sealed, if it was just the Columbia records being sealed, if it was one thing, two things.
Phil, now this is an excellent question, Jerry. Is this an issue for you of a smoking gun or death by 1,000 nicks?
Well, I think it's really not the birth certificate. That's the issue is an identity issue. The fact is we've got, basically an undocumented worker in the White House. And every time you try to get the documentary evidence, they're sealed, you can't see them, they're lost, they're gone. American people have a right to know who this guy is. Is he Barry Soetoro, or is he Barack Obama, or somebody else? We're 4 years into the presidency, and these fundamental questions about who Obama is have not been answered, with a loving press falling all over Obama and not asking questions that they would normally ask to vet a candidate like Romney.
All right, Jerry, we have a call from Chris calling all the way from Detroit. Chris, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Governor. Good afternoon, Dr. Corsi. Quickly, if this was not an issue, why would the regime of Obama be spending, I've heard upwards of $3 million to defend any time this thing comes up in court nationwide? Secondly, what about the Social Security number this guy has, allegedly from somebody in Connecticut? If somebody were to apply at my company for a job, not only would I want to do a drug test and a background check, but my gosh, if the Social Security
Chris, let me follow up with Jerry about that. Jerry, is there an issue about the Social Security card?
Yes, it was issued to someone in the 70s in Connecticut. Obama was never in Connecticut to apply for this card. Even Bill O'Reilly was wrong, covering for Obama, saying, the father applied for the card. Well, the father was chased out of the United States, Barack Obama Sr., the Kenyan, in 1964 with a scurrilous record from the INS of chasing about every woman he came in contact with. They wanted him gone. The father was nowhere around to apply for Barack Obama's Social Security company card. That number does not correspond and E-verify. The Social Security said it was not issued to Barack Obama. And besides, Obama had a job at a Baskin-Robbins ice cream shop when he was a kid in Hawaii. Why didn't he have a Hawaiian Social Security card for that job, or was he paid under the table?
But when he was a kid, he probably didn't have a Social Security card at all.
Well, okay, so he got paid under the table. But
most kids that go work someplace do.
Fine. Then that's great. But he does not have any reason to have gotten this Connecticut-issued card.
Okay. John from Brooklyn, you're on with Jerry Corsi.
Yes, hello. Greetings. In 1875, there was a decision by the Supreme Court, Minor versus Happersett, and it defined natural-born citizen as being somebody born in the United States territories and having citizen parents. Now, apparently, according to Barack's story, this would disqualify him because his father was not a citizen, but it also would.
But it wouldn't if he. But he wasn't born in the United States territory. He was born in the United States because of why he was admitted about.
No. I'm talking about citizen parents. Okay.
The issue is citizen parents, and the case is Minor v. Happersett, and I've written extensively that it does apply. And an attempt by the Obama supporters to redefine natural-born citizenship in light of the 14th Amendment is not justified in any decisions of the Supreme Court, regardless of the fact that a case here or there may mention it in dicta.
Jerry, by the way, I'm just curious. What do you think about the issue that I've raised, and it's really just for discussion, that former Governor George Romney Sr., who has passed away, was born in Mexico to United States citizen parents. I don't know that there's ever been a finding constitutionally on whether or not he could have served had he continued to run for president in 1968.
Well, first of all, I don't know why we're talking about George Romney.
No, I'm just asking you that question.
He may not have been. George Romney may not have been a natural-born citizen. But what's clear at Reuters and all these others trying to ask questions about Romney's birth certificate that they will not ask about Obama's because they're trying to support Obama. Mitt Romney was born in Detroit to two U.S. citizen parents.
Yeah, no, we have no problem with Mitt Romney. Hold on just one second,
Mitt
Jerry.
Romney is a natural-born citizen,
okay,
for sure.
Hold on. We'll be right back. Chris in Buckhead, Georgia, for Dr. Jerry Corsi. Good afternoon.
Hi, Dr. Corsi. How are you?
He's ready for your question.
Oh, I'm ready? Yes, my question was, I was curious, you mentioned earlier about the hospital records from the hospital there in Honolulu. I was curious, how long do they usually keep those kind of records?
Well, the hospital won't say. Last time I went to the hospital and asked that question, they said I would be arrested if I didn't leave the premises immediately.
So, I mean, they won't tell you how long they keep birth records with anybody?
No, that's right. They won't tell me anything. They won't answer any questions at all.
And Jerry, also, you claim that there's somewhat of a dispute between two different hospitals in which the president may have been born.
Well, initially the family was saying that Obama was born in Queens Hospital. And then it changed. They said, no, it was Kapiolani Hospital. Well, you can't, I don't know how somebody's born in two different hospitals at the same time or confused about it. And neither hospital has produced a single record that the mother was ever a patient there.
Mike in Long Island for Jerry Corsi.
Hey, hi, Governor. A couple of calls ago, someone asked why Republicans would be so reticent to bring up this issue, as they were last time in the last cycle. And I think there's an obvious answer that, is the potential social consequences of disenfranchising this president or removing him from office or nullifying his actions, which would be that there would be substantial race riots across America. I think the urban areas of America would explode, and it would be nearly a civil war if that were to occur. So all the arguments from a technical standpoint,
Jerry, let's hear your...
are great, but...
Let's hear your response. But go ahead.
Lance, first of all, my pursuit is for the truth. And our founding fathers believed that we could handle the truth. This country's been through many crises, including many crises of the presidency. Founding fathers left us a strong document in the Constitution. If we adhere to it, we'll have a strong republic going forward. We've got excellent law enforcement across the country. And if a threat of criminal civil violence is the only reason we don't pursue the truth...
But the idea of criminal civil violence because a president's found not to...
Preposterous. It's preposterous.
Okay, thank you for that, Jerry. At least... Wow. Okay, James in Longview, Texas.
Well, good afternoon, Governor Paterson and Dr. Corsi. Anyhow, Dr. Corsi had talked to you on the subject with Gordon Liddy, and basically I was just wondering if Barack Obama is proven ineligible to fulfill constitutional prerequisites to serve as president, kind of like the previous caller was saying, would the public have the gumption to seek his impeachment and removal? I mean, would we? It's not a matter of the Constitution not working. Would we have the conviction to do it?
Oh, James, I think a lot of people stood up for President Nixon, but as soon as the tapes exposed him, he had no political support after that.
My confidence is in the American people. I think the American people will do the right thing. We've fought numerous wars. We've gone through all kinds of crises. If it's proved that President Obama lied and is ineligible to be president or didn't know, and the facts are contrary to what he's represented, he's represented all these contradictory pieces of information at the hospital, born in Kenya, not born in Kenya. The American people can handle it.
Okay.
And let's get the truth.
Richard in New Jersey for Dr. Jerry Corsi.
Hello, Governor?
Yes, sir.
Hi, how are you? Very good program. Obama's birth announcement was published in a Hawaiian newspaper 4 days after his birth. How do you explain the publishing of the birth announcement in Hawaii if he had no connection with Hawaii at the time of his birth?
Hawaii law permits the registration of births by the family, not even by the doctor. Anyone who knew of the birth is allowed under Hawaii law in 1961 to go in and just register the birth. Today, Hawaiian law even allows you to register foreign births, as long as you're a resident of the islands and pay taxes. Hawaii is one of the... And so those birth announcements in the newspaper don't mean anything except that some birth was registered. And I've always said it's not because they thought he was going to be president, but it's always an intrinsic value to have U.S. citizenship. They didn't want to register this child as a foreign national. The child was born in Kenya, and the family could register it as an out-of-hospital birth. The family would register it And I've got pretty good evidence which suggests that the birth was registered by the grandparents, which is the address on that birth announcement in the newspapers. Mommy and Daddy never had an address together. So I've got pretty good evidence that it was registered in an outlying office where the unattended births were registered.
Okay, Jerry, hold up. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. We're inquiring about the president's birthplace with Dr. Jerry Corsi. Let's go to Rose in Orange County, California.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
I wanted to state that Obama, on two different videos that I've actually seen, states that his father and his grandfather are born in Kenya, they're Muslims, and that they were his subjects of Britain and under the British rule. Therefore, Obama inherited being a subject of Britain at his birth, and being a baby of a foreign-born parent automatically makes him ineligible.
Jerry.
I've said, Governor, the father being a Kenyan, Obama's dual citizen in birth, and he was not eligible for that reason alone to be president. And by the way, Governor, thanks for mentioning, before we run out of time, the abiotic oil. Check out my new ebook on that great oil conspiracy, and the ebook Saul Alinsky, the evil genius behind Obama.
Well, hold up, Jerry. We'll talk about abiotic oil with you one day because it's actually quite interesting. James in Newark, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is James. I'm calling about this guy talking about Obama's birth certificate.
Go ahead.
I don't believe a word he's saying. The president was born in America. They need to stop this crazy stuff. It's crazy.
All right, James. Hang on. LeVar in the Bronx. Go ahead.
As far as him when he was living in Indonesia, back then the Indonesian law stated that you cannot have dual citizenship. He would have had to give up his U.S. citizenship. And if he wanted it back, he would have had to wait till he turned 18 and reapply.
But why can't he give up his Kenyan citizenship? He was never there. You know, they have like abandoned property statutes that if somebody wasn't there, Jerry, go ahead.
Well, I think the Indonesian question is a valid question. And we don't have their adoption record. We know he was very Satoro in Indonesia. Is that a legal name change? His mother put down a surname for him in Indonesia, Soy Barca. What's the legal name of the guy sitting in the White House? Is it Barry Satoro or Barack Obama?
Okay, so here's how I see it, folks. The evidence is coming left and right. It just doesn't work for me.
This has been a podcast from WOR.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.